So a recent quarter 3 earnings call just happened, and Bob Iger had some very interesting things to say. And I wonder if this had any bearing on the decision to do these massive reshoots with Captain America, with the new one, Brave New World. What a weird name. This is an article from The Hollywood Reporter, Bob Iger on Disney's movie woes. We lost some focus. The media and entertainment mogul said it's imperative to focus on quality and not quantity. I mean, we've been saying that for forever, but okay. Captain Obvious there. So the article starts, for years Disney ruled the roost at the global box office, shattering one industry record after another. Now the company's film empire is under pressure to rebound from a rough streak. Disney chief Bob Iger didn't mince words when asked about the losing streak during Wednesday's earnings call. Although he did first have to remind investors that it hasn't been all bad news, noting that 4 of the top films in the past year came from the company, including Avatar: The Way of Water. So he goes on to say, that said, as I looked at our overall output, meaning the studio, it's clear that the pandemic created a lot of challenges creatively for everybody, including for us. In addition, at the time the pandemic hit, we were leaning into a huge increase in how much we were making, and I've always felt that quantity can be actually a negative when it comes to quality, and I think that's exactly what happened. We lost some focus. Yeah, it's funny to me too that well, it's not funny, but I feel like COVID is just being thrown about as an excuse because there have been some amazing films that have come out, great series have come out that somehow, didn't let the pandemic stifle their ability to tell a good story. So yes, it created a challenge. I know for Denis Villeneuve, it was extremely challenging too. He had to deal with doing post-production during COVID. So that was a lot of work had to be done remotely and communicating with the various departments. And I think even still Mission Impossible Dead Reckoning, it had a very large budget or production budget, what ended up becoming, because they were filming at the height of COVID restrictions. And they were filming overseas in multiple different countries, and they would be filming in a spot and then there'd be lockdowns that had to go in place because of breakouts in cases. So they'd have to shut down filming and then kind of reevaluate and then go to another location. So that was why that had a bloated budget. And they still paid their employees during all of that downtime when Mission Impossible, when they had to refocus, restructure, and then film in a different location. They had to do that multiple times. So if they didn't, it probably would have ended up making more of a profit. But as it stands, yes, they were filming in extremely difficult circumstances. And that's why that budget ended up being close to, I think it was around 250 million plus. But what was the excuse for Indiana Jones and the Dial of Destiny? Because that was filmed after that. I mean, quite recently. It wasn't filmed during that same time and when a lot of those restrictions were being eased up. So what was the excuse there for why Indiana Jones did so poorly? Had a very disappointing story. So what was your excuse for that? And of course they want to lobby, they want to draw attention. Well, with streaming, we diverted all this attention to streaming because everyone was at home mostly, so we had to create content for that. Well, you didn't have to do that. Like, we were so starved. Oh, the public is just so starved for WandaVision. I don't know, we need to give them Marvel content to help them get through the day. You didn't have to do that. You didn't have to put yourselves in that position to begin with. You rolled the dice on streaming. They spent so much money. They have actually never made a profit on Disney Plus, and they've been spending hundreds of millions of dollars on each series that they've pumped out with no revenue from that. So they've just been sinking money into the streaming service repeatedly. That's not the pandemic's fault. Bob Iger concludes by saying, we're all rolling up our sleeves, including myself, to do just that, which is focus on quality and not quantity. We have obviously great assets, great stories to tell from the assets that we either have or that we purchased. And I feel really optimistic about the slate going forward, which is going to be a balance between some really strong sequels to some very, very popular titles, as well as some good original content, starting with Wish, which comes out Thanksgiving weekend. So I feel good about the direction we're headed, but I'm mindful of the fact that our performance from a quality perspective wasn't really up to the standards that we set for ourselves. So this actually sounds even more just funny, I guess, in light of the massive reshoots that Captain America Brave New World is now having to go through. Major sequences requiring months of filming. So I wonder how optimistic he's feeling at the moment. So the article itself ends with noting the recent high-profile misses for Disney, which did include Indiana Jones and the Dial of Destiny and The Haunted Mansion. Yeah, The Haunted Mansion did not do very well. And that was also a huge budget on that movie. Like, you wouldn't think The Haunted Mansion, which is based off a ride, would be given such a huge budget. It wasn't just those misses. Quantumania, Ant-Man and the Wasp Quantumania did not make a profit. That also had a very trouble. It's going through, I guess, what Captain America now is going through, because that also went through several production date shifts and moving up deadlines. Again, a very troubled production behind the scenes as well. Reshoots and a very taxed VFX team that have now unionized because of just they can't keep up with this, with their workload and not being paid for it. There was that, and Guardians of the Galaxy 3, I don't think it did okay, but I don't think that was even very profitable either. It underperformed. Yeah, they were expecting it to do more. And Elemental, they spent $200 million on that, and it eked out, I think, to $400 million, but I don't think that even managed to make a profit on that as well, because there's marketing, and then, theaters themselves take a percentage. So, and it was a Pixar movie. I'm sure they were expecting that to do well. So there's definitely been a lot of misses. Those were just, a couple of them this year. There definitely needs to be an entirely new approach to filmmaking. I think it's just certain studios, like Disney in particular, what is costing so much? So I remember Katie Sackhoff remarking about being involved with The Mandalorian Season 3. I guess she was remarking on the food, like how remarkable it was, how vast, because there were so many people on set as well. And she remarked on how vastly different that was for her time on Battlestar Galactica. So there's like, are y'all just spending it? You just have tons of people that probably don't do much on set, but you have them there, and then you have to feed them all like craft service, and you go all out for that. But also too, they don't really have a clear vision for what they're filming in a certain sequence. So things may drag out unnecessarily because they have to get their stuff together about what they're doing in the first place. And it seems to be a growing problem that they don't have a clear vision even up to filming. Like with Star Wars, like I was saying with Rise of Skywalker, they were making changes on the fly. As they were filming, they were rewriting and reshooting tons of scenes. And again, Daisy Ridley didn't even know definitively yet when they started filming who she was, who her character was, because they hadn't decided yet. They just want to announce, they want to move ahead, just plow through content as fast as they possibly can, and then think later about what they're going to do, and plan later what they want to do. It's just, and if they don't do it right, we'll fix it in post, which leads to these VFX studios having such problems behind the scenes, because they'll film something and they'll change something in the story. Now we don't really like it, and we'll just stay like that anyways and fix it in post. VFX will fix it later. So I think that's what they did with She-Hulk. I remember reading the Variety article talking about the chaos behind the scenes. They had to redo like the entire show of She-Hulk after they had filmed most of it, because they realized that not until episode 8, I believe, is when she actually transformed into the Hulk, into She-Hulk. So then they thought, oh, well, we probably need to do that sooner. So can you just redo all that and fix it in post or whatever you need to do after the fact? What Bob Iger is saying here is just common sense. Why are you figuring this out only now when you've basically tanked? You had like 2 of the most popular IPs ever. And Star Wars, I would say, being the most popular. That is like one of the most popular franchises and mythologies. And now it is considered floundering, even by mainstream media. Consistently, they are calling it out as a struggling franchise. And to even think that would have been the case with the Star Wars IP it's almost like unfathomable, because it was so popular. And how you can manage to ruin that is insane. They took advantage of the fact that this had a huge built-in fan base. and just felt that they could do the minimum amount of work. And then we're just going to slap the name Star Wars and people will come out in droves. That worked to a degree in the beginning, but now you've gotten to the point where it's now considered a struggling franchise. And it's deemed that way because you have consistently poor quality stories. So what he's saying right here, it's your whatever, corporate speak. This is common sense. Everyone knows this. Quality before quantity. Yeah. Duh.